Welcome back to Lenny's Fishing, and today we're fishing on a mark just north of the River Tyne from some rocks in search of some cod. So once again I'm going to be trying for some nice summer cod. What I'm trying to do is to try and get a better stamp of fish, hopefully around the 3-4 pound plus mark. Thanks to everyone who watched the last video where I did get into some nice red summer cod. Unfortunately they weren't the size that we were looking for, only being around £1.5 to £2. But I've come back out again to try for a quick smash and grab, just have a short 2-hour session and use the rest of the crab that I've got left from my most recent session, which was just up at the borders of Scotland, or just north of the borders of Scotland, where I had a nice red cod, a pollock, a wrasse and some coal fish. But that was just a pleasure session with my friends and I didn't take the camera equipment, so I thought I'd treat you to another video. I'm really hoping that I can get a better quality fish out for you for the camera. So I've come to a mark that I fish quite a lot in the summer that tends to chuck out some bigger fish, but it's very rough ground here, which is the type of fishing that I like. So I'm just going to get my rig out, get baited up and get the first cast out, and we'll come back to you as soon as that's in the water. So as always, for the rough ground fishing that I do, short pulley rig, single hook. This time of year I'm just using a 3/0 because my baits aren't going to be very big. Just going to start off with a full peeler crab, just a small one. I'll get this tied on, chucked out. So just peeling the legs there, cracking the bottom of the shell, just flicking that away. And then the side plates. And then just pop it out. There you go. And then bait needle. I use the Tronics Pro Twin baiting tool because it's nice and small, easy to use. I place that on the back of the hook and then you can hold it like that. I secure the hook to the needle with some elastic and then I simply just get whatever bait I'm using, which today, like I said, is crab, and I place that onto the back of the hook and I just gently wind it up and down, and then just before I'm about to snap it off I apply quite a lot of elastic to where the eye of the hook is and the knot that connects the snood line to the hook, and that just prevents the bait sliding up and down the hook. And then I'm just going to top this one up with a small soft shell crab just to bulk it out a little bit, because I always like to use my first bait as quite a big bait, just to indicate whether there's many fish here or not. So I'm just tying that soft crab onto the back, snap that off, there's the ball of crab, and then all you do is just pull your hook away from the needle and there you have it. It's another windy one today, like, so again apologies if you're picking up any of the wind noise. But at least it's coming from the west, which keeps us staying nice and flat, which is what you want in the summer when you're fishing for codlins and the kelp. You want it as flat as possible. Completely opposite of the winter fishing. Mark's super shallow, so I've got the bait clip down into the splashdown, rotten bottom on. And I'm just going to try and put this one at about 80 yards. Hop, skip and jump. Woo! Right, here we go. Overhead thump. Oh, do I put some into it? Start off with an overhead thump there. See if there's any fish a bit closer in. And then it's just a case of waiting. So yeah, as I said, I had a canny session just north of the borders of Scotland, around the Eyemouth area, with a couple of my mates. Took the camper vans up, had a bit of a camping trip, canny night round the fire pit with the barbecue on, and a couple of beers. And then we got up the next morning and went down onto the rocks and did a bit of fishing. Had a lovely red cod, probably the reddest cod I've ever caught actually. It was like a goldfish, really nice. I had a canny ballon wrasse, I had a pollock on the lure and I had a few coolies on the bait as well, just small coolies. So there was no filming done that day, but what I'll do is I'll pop some pictures into this video of the fish that I had on the last session. Bang on 2 hours before low water now. I'll probably get to fish down to bottom water, and then that'll probably be me out of bait, because I've only brought the rest of the peeler crab that I had left over from the other session. But I find this mark that I'm fishing today better on the ebb tide anyway, so with a bit of luck I'll have hit it right and I can pull at least one fish out for the camera. As I say, the fishing around the local area of South Shields, which is sort of the South Shields, Marsden area, and then north of the Tyne from Tynemouth up to, I'd say, Almouth area has been very, very slow. There does seem to be a few fish starting to show between Crossed and Sea Houses now, which is a bit further north. And as the weeks progress and you get a few more sets of big tides, that should see some more pockets of fish moving into the kelp and some better fish as well. So I'm a little bit premature for this mark today for this year. I did have fish on here this time last year, just north of the Tyne. And obviously it doesn't take as long to drive here from South Shields as what it does if I was to go up the Crossed and stuff. So that's why I thought I'd just come down and give it a go. So I wasn't holding much hope for this first chuck. It's been sitting there about 20 minutes and it's never moved, and then I've just been getting a little tap on it there. I don't think it's nothing special, like it might even just be a lobster plucking away at it. Yeah, I've just felt it there, it's certainly nothing special, that. I think I'll just put this down and give it another 5 minutes just in case it progresses, but if not, then whatever's stripping away the bait will do me a favour for now to bait back up. That's an old school way to put your rod in the tripod, that, innit? No tripod needed. Right, let's get this in and have a change of bait. Nah, there's not one there. Well, there's your solid evidence that you're in the right place. And it has been stripped. Right, we'll go again, fresh bait on, and then give the second chuck 15-20 minutes, see if anything happens, and if not, then we might shift along somewhere to the left or right of us. Something I'll mention as well is, like, every time I go to rebait, I always check the point on my hook, just to see if it's ended up blunt on the way in. You know, if it's hit off a rock or something when you've been pulling out of the kelp. And it's just as well because this one is blunt. So you don't want to be baiting up, chucking out, getting a really good bite and then missing your bite because your hook's blunt. So always make sure you're checking your hook points in between every single cast. So I put a new hook on here. Proper lump of crab, this one. Have a look at that. It's like a golf ball, isn't it? Little golf ball on the end of your hook. Right, I'm just gonna jump onto the end of them rocks here and just plop this one, because our tide's dropped quite far back now. Here we go. If I can find a safe passage on, like. Water's crystal clear, so I can see what's under my feet. Here we go. Easy as that. Kind of help me, Sal. I'm going to have to move my gear onto it, like. There's no point in being stuck back here when I can get on there. You have to keep reeling whilst you're walking forwards as well if you're pushing your gear forwards, just to keep the tension on the braid. So just keep stopping and keep tightening it up. The only thing is, if I get a bite now, I'm goosed, aren't I? Because I can't just fly over there in the click of a finger. I'll show you what I mean. So, with the water being drained clear, you can sort of pick where you're going to put your feet and know that it's going to be safe. And then there's a bit of a deep hole here. You can see that one surfaces a bit, so just stand on there and we're on. And a perfect positioning for my camera as well. Right. So just whilst I'm sitting chilling on my seat box, watching the end of my rod, waiting for a bite, I thought I'd just talk to you about Watercraft. So one of the lads messaged us on Facebook, called Alex Shepherd, and he asked us if I would just talk about Watercraft in one of the videos, just to learn a little bit more about it. So it's different for all forms of fishing. Obviously Watercraft's adaptable to all types of fishing, but when it comes to rock fishing, it's pretty basic. So my advice is, if you're fishing a mark where you can get cut off on, so for example if the tide can come around the mark that you're fishing, then what I always do is, if you get on that mark 2.5 hours before low tide, that doesn't mean to say that you can fish the mark for 2.5 hours of the flood, because sometimes it can flood in quicker than it ebbs off. So just to play it safe, if you get on somewhere 2.5 hours before low tide when you're rock fishing, just make sure that 2 hours of the flood and then you're looking to come back off, and you've got half an hour as sort of a safety net. Now, some people have got their own marks down to an absolute T, and they can wade off a mark on the last minute. But for the general guy who doesn't know his mark like the back of his hand, or if you're trying a new mark, for example, like I say, just give yourself half an hour leeway. So that means if you access that mark 2 hours before low tide, you come off an hour and a half into the flood. Or for example, if you access that mark 2.5 hours before low tide, you have 2 hours of the flood. And then that way you've got half an hour of the flood tide just to keep you safe and get back off without having to panic about a gully or whatever it is that you've waded through to get onto a mark, being full of water, and then you're essentially stuck where you are, and then you've either got to call for help or you've got to leave all your gear behind and swim off. No one wants that. It's not worth it for the sake of 1 or 2 more casts. You know, just get off the mark. Your fishing session's done, move somewhere else, go home. Don't push it. There's just no point. It's not worth it. No fish is worth being in trouble or being in danger like. So that's just a little bit of watercraft about what timing to sort of fish on low tide marks. High tide marks doesn't really need much explanation. It's generally 2 or 3 hours up, 2 or 3 hours down. You've got no issues when it comes to high tide marks. It's just low water marks. Here's a good bite here, look. Let's have you. Let's have you. I think it's one of them fish that sit in the kelp with the binoculars, you know, the ones that watch you. And as soon as you pick the rod up, they stop biting. And as soon as you put the rod back down, they start biting. I bet you any money, as soon as I put this down, it starts to bite away again. Yeah, it turns out I was wrong. Hasn't started to bite again. So I just got back to the watercraft stuff. So it's not just about tides and access and marks. Watercraft covers a whole array of things. Conditions, swells, tide sizes, even as deep as going into like air pressure and stuff like that. So a little bit about what I know about it. So bigger tides tend to produce more for when you're cod fishing, because I find that on the bigger tides it moves more fish inshore into the kelp beds and stuff. And also over low tide, when you're fishing on a big tide but over low water, you can access more marks. Now there is certain areas where on big tides, when the water empties out, it doesn't hold enough water to hold fish. Now although cod only need a few foot of water, some marks completely empty out to the point where there's no water at all, and you might have kelp beds surfacing out of the water for 80 yards before you get any depth of water. So them marks are ruled out when you've got big tides. Now however, it can be a positive when you've got small tides, because there's certain marks that fish better on a small tide, because that mark might hold more water into a certain gully or something like that. But on a whole, generally from what I've experienced over the years, there tends to be more fish shore on the bigger tides than there does on the small tides, and that both goes for summer and winter fishing. Now in the summer, you want it flat as possible when you're fishing the kelp beds for the cod and the wrasse and the pollock and all the rest of it, and you want the water pretty clear as well, because in the summer months your fish are inshore looking for either crabs in the kelp beds, in the rocks, or they are looking for little sand eels, little herring sprat and stuff like that. And obviously you want the water clarity pretty clear, as that's what they like to feed on, and it helps them to feed on that sort of bait when the water's clear. Now in the winter, complete opposite. You want a big rough sea, and you want the water as coloured as possible, especially if you're fishing during the daytime. Because if you're fishing during the daytime in the winter and it's really bright and sunny, it can make the fishing a bit harder if the water's not very, very coloured. But most of the time, when you get a rough sea in the winter, the water is automatically coloured with it. Now, when you're looking for winter conditions, you're looking for a wind that has any sort of north in it or any sort of east in it. So whether that be straight north or straight east, or it could be northwesterly, northeasterly, southeasterly. Them sorts of winds that blow from offshore onto the land, they're the ones that build the sea, make it nice and rough, and then you get your big rough seas that stir all the bottom up, and that's what bring the cod inshore to look for the feed. that is something that just comes with experience. It's not something that you can just wake up one day and know everything about. You have to sort of learn about it, keep an eye on the wind directions, and then learn about sort of what strength of wind's going to pick up the sea at what certain size swells, etc, etc. And obviously you've got assistance from certain weather apps as well. I use Surfline and Windy to find out the swell height, and I also use XC Weather and Met Office for the wind direction and the wind gusts as well. There's loads and loads of stuff you can learn when it comes to watercraft, and it's a massive part of your fishing. And I think that being consistent comes with having the knowledge of where to fish and when, and that doesn't mean necessarily just time of year. It means state of tide, size of tide, wind direction and swell conditions. So there's a multitude of factors that can go into being a consistent angler. It's all well and good, you can turn up on any mark and cast a bait out into the water. If you're lucky and there's a fish there, you'll probably catch that fish if it's looking for food. But the hardest part is to find the areas where the fish are holding. And them fish will only hold in the areas if the conditions are right for it. I can't really think about anything else that I could cover on watercraft without getting too technical on a video. But if anyone's got any sort of specific questions that they would like to ask about it, or any advice that you may need about it, then you can drop us a message on Facebook. Just go onto my business page, which is Lenny's Tackle and Bait, and you can just message us through there, and I'm happy to answer any questions anyone's got. See, that bird just clipped me line there, just shook the rod. I thought I had a bite for a minute. And if anyone else has got anything that they'd like us to cover on these videos, again, just drop a comment on this video or send us a message direct through the Facebook account, and I'll try and include it in my YouTube video, because I know that if one person is asking the question, then that'll clearly benefit multiple people. So that's it for the technical side of things. I'm going to relax a little bit more now and enjoy the rest of the session. Hopefully you can enjoy watching it, and hopefully I can put a fish in front of the camera for you. We'll see what happens. Right, that's the second chuck over and done with. Just that one bite on it earlier on. Don't think there'll be anything sitting on, like, but you never know. Nah. Not at all. That's heavy out there though, no, not much. Right, whip this in. Hopefully third time lucky, yeah. Right, next chuck I'm going to try chucking as far over to the right as I can, and then failing that I'm going to chuck as far over to the left as I can, and then at least I've covered the ground all over the place, and then I'll be out of excuses after that. Now to get on the fourth chuck, so that was over to the right. I'm going to have the fifth chuck over to the left, then it'll be bottom water, and then I'll probably have two more chucks for the first of the flood. I didn't think my bait would make it to the flood tide, but the fishing's been that slow that I've just been leaving my baits on for like 25 minutes, half an hour at a time, just to see if I can get any bites. And the baits are coming back stripped, but we'll keep trying. Still an enjoyable day's fishing, still an enjoyable little session. The weather's nice and warm, a little bit of a breeze to keep the humidity off, flat calm, and the sun's not blinding us, which I like, so I'm enjoying it. Hopefully we can put the cherry on the top. But just chucked over to the left for the fifth chuck, and I'm getting a decent bite straight away, so hopefully I've found the one that's lying in a kelp bed that hasn't been took out. It's going to be another one of them, innit? As soon as I pick the rod up, it stopped biting. It's frustrating, that. suppose at least I'm getting bites to keep us on my toes, like. I'm just going to put that on the tripod and just keep an eye on it for a few minutes. But that was probably the best bite I've had all day, and the quickest as well. A little bit more promising. That's a bit better, like. It's ratty though, so I don't think it's a codlin. Could be a small coolie or a wrasse, like. Let's see if I can get him. See if I can actually hook it. This is a problem when you've got small coolies that give good bites, but they just never end up on hooks, or very rarely they do when you're fishing with cod hooks. And then I'll pick the rod up and I'll stand here and I'll not get another bite. Haha, got it, like. Whatever it is. It's only small. A rockman. That's my guess. Let's find out. Feels a bit heavy to be a rockman actually, like it's probably a small codlin. Here he is. It's a codlin. God, I've never been so happy to see an undersized codlin. Woohoo! Blank saved. Get in. Get in. As if I'm saying get in. But tell you what, he is a welcome undersized codlin today, I tell you. Nice deep red colours on it. It's not that bright yet. A few more weeks in the kelp and that'll be bright red. Bonny little finger. And it's just in its tongue, the hook, so I can pop that out. And he'll go back no bother. Champion. Straight down, off he goes. Should start flooding within the next 15 minutes, so I'll catch a first of the flood, and hopefully with a bit of luck I can get a bigger one out. Biting away again here. Tell you what's blew my theory out of the water, like, because every time I've fished here I've always had my fish on the ebb, and today it seems to be bottom water and first of the flood that the bites have come on, so you think you've got a mark sus to the T, and then all it takes is for it to have one session and you're back to square one with it. So that bite looked like a small codlin, judging by the way it was erratically biting before I turned the camera back on. So I'll just leave that out there, let it poke away at it. Hopefully it gets a hook in its mouth. Definitely a codlin, yeah. Might actually be a bit better this. Whoa. Oh. 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 That's a better fish. Whoa, aye. Go on. Get out that kelp. Oh God, look at it. Oh, I don't want to lose this, like. Definitely feels like a half decent fish, this. Take me time with it. There you go. We've got him moving. Once they get out the kelp you realise they're not as big as you thought. But it's definitely not undersized, I know that much. Just the way it was diving down when it was hung up in the kelp there, just felt like a bit of fish. What is it? Is it a wrasse? Oh no, it's a pollock. I tell you what, that's a lovely fish, that. Hey, I did not expect that. Wow. Jesus Christ. Well, that's a shock to the system, isn't it? Unbelievable, that. Get in. Wow. Just when you think you need deep water for pollock, eh? And you can come onto a mark that you're fishing shallow kelp beds and pull this out. That's blew my mind, that has, like. Class. Hey. Well, that's made the session worthwhile, hasn't it? Right, we'll get this unhooked. Slipping back. Oh. Oh well, he's unhooked himself. I'm not even going to wait, but I'm going to say 3.5, 4 at a push. Right, let's get this fella back, eh? You have made my day, you mister. Lovely fish, that. Off you go, go on. He's away, him. Champion. Hey, that's made my day, that has, like. You know what it is? That was just such a surprise. I did not expect to get a pollock on this mark where I'm fishing very, very shallow water. But all my theories are being blown out the water today. Right, got 2 more chucks. Let's see what happens. I'm buzzing with that, honest. That'll explain why I thought it was a good fish, because it was a good fish. When I first hooked into it and it was stuck in the kelp and the rod was going down like that, I thought, this feels decent, this. And then as it come out of the kelp, I thought, nah, it doesn't feel that big. It must have been swimming in with us, and it wasn't until it got just at my feet I could see this big tail flicking out the water, and I thought, that doesn't look like a cod. Is it a wrasse? And then when it come to my feet, I thought, no way, it's a pollock. I mean, I've had pollock when I've been bait fishing on the rocks before on crab, but never when I've been bait fishing on a mark that's as shallow as here. Honestly. What a surprise, eh? What a belter. Well chuffed with that. Get in. Right, get this in, have my last chuck. Nothing's come of that chuck after that pollock. So see what happens on the last chuck, eh? You never know. Clearly. Tell you what though, it just shows you can come out local, have a couple hours and you can pull things out like that. It's always worth getting your gear out and going for a shot. You know them days when you sit there and you're considering going out and then you think, nah, I can't be arsed. Probably catching out. Just get yourself out, man. Couple of hours, couple of chucks. What else are you gonna do? Sit in the house and scroll on your phone? You know? Just pick your gear up and go out for a few chucks and you never know what may happen. Can you remember earlier on when I said try and get the cherry on the top? That was definitely the cherry on the top, that, like. Right, there's the last bait. Tide's starting to push in now, like, so I would have getting pushed back off this little rock anyway very soon. So I've got time for this last chuck and then I'll be off. Would make no difference anyway, even if I wanted to stay. I've run out of bait. Like I say, I only had enough bait for 7 casts. I had 6 crab, 5 of them I put on whole, and 1 of them I cut in half. So, just goes to show, again, that's all you need for a session out. half a dozen crab. You don't need a bucket with 20 crab in and stuff like that, man. I mean, it's nice to have, like, but getting pollock crab's very hard, so especially at the minute. Right, I've put this one straight in the pollock hole there. Ground feels a bit cleaner there, like. That's in the kelp though. Right. Last chance saloon. I'm not bothered anyway, me, like. Couldn't ask for any more than what I've had there. For a quick smash and grab session. What a canny reward. Well, that's the end of the session, guys. Really happy with that pollock that I got. It was a nice surprise. Thanks for watching once again. Hope you really enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it, please make sure that you subscribe. It costs absolutely nothing to subscribe. We're trying to grow the channel and chuck out some good content. I'll be doing at least a video a week for the foreseeable future. We'll try and mix it up a little bit. Mainly it's going to be cod fishing up and down the northeast coast, and every now and then we'll be travelling around trying to catch other species. But once again, another great session, local to home, with a nice surprise chucked in. And until the next one, tight lines.